Okay, everyone, we're starting again. It's your last panel, and there will be a coffee break after this, so help me help you get there. All right? I'm going to start because we're running out of time. All right, so this is your last panel of the day. It's called Gearing Up the European Defense Industry. What does industry need? It sounds like it's going to be an easy sell for industry. We're just asking what we can do to help you. Almost sounds like a counseling session. So all day, if you've been following, we've been talking about intentions and actions aimed at helping the European industry scale up its capacity. And this is, of course, due to a situation we're likely to have to live with for a long time. That's why we talk about long-term contracts. Industry has been asking even for 10 and 20-year contracts. So now the problem is that they're not getting contracts, as I tried to talk with Commissioner Breton about. So when we come to the question of what industry needs, that's obviously one answer. You need contracts, you did what was asked of you, and now the contracts are not coming through. It will not be the only thing on your ask list. But we're going to hear from Jan Pius, starting the Secretary General of ASD, everyone knows him, he's one of our hosts today. Claudio Graciano, the chairman of Fincantieri and a former EU military committee chief. Welcome. Éric Béranger, the CEO of MBDA, a missile developer and manufacturer. And Frank Haun, the CEO of KNDS, a system supplier that develops, produces, and supports heavily armored, wheeled, and tracked vehicles. Thank you very much. Okay, so I'm going to start with you, Jan. For an overview on what we've heard today, you of course have been here. You opened the first session today. So when we ask if you've heard any new initiatives today, if you've heard anything today, or what you know has been promoted in the last months, I mean, what Commissioner Breton announced last month, EDIP, in addition to EDIS, are you confident that industry does now or will soon have what it needs to both be confident in its capacity for what they're telling you you need to be ready for, and is it sustainable? Again, if you're not getting the contracts, and I've seen some ammunition manufacturers in particular asking for 10 to 20-year contracts, but you're not getting any, this doesn't sound like such a good situation to me.
So thanks, Teri. That's a number of questions all in one, so it's a bit of a Kinder egg, right?
Yeah, then you get to ask what you want, unfortunately. Rookie mistake here.
Having said that, have we heard anything new today? Indeed, there's been very good discussions during the day today, and especially about the need for a changed mindset to actually take the actions that are needed to be able to do the upscaling of the defense industrial capacity in Europe, whatever that means then. But one of the discussions that there's been a lot about is obviously on what is the added value then of EDIS and EDIP and so on. Will that, I mean, first of all, it needs to be hammered out how this instrument or how the instrument will work, what are all the details. But will that alone, if it works well, will that alone deliver so that we have what we need? And here I would like to stress a couple of things. I'd like to make a few comments. My first comment is that there are three stakeholders, three very important actors in this triangle. One is obviously industry. Industry has done a lot already. Industry has stretched as far as it can when it comes to taking risks, doing investments, etc., on the basis that exists today. I don't think that there is any, I meet industry representatives every day, all week round, and I don't think I've ever met anyone from industry that is not focused on gearing up and delivering towards Ukraine. So industry has done a lot. Will EDIS, EDIP deliver? Well, that depends a lot on the buy-in from the member states. These are instruments put at the table for the member states. If the member states do buy in, they can make a difference. If member states don't buy in, I doubt that we will see too much of deliverables from EDIS, EDIP. I think, first of all, one needs to keep in mind that it's the member states that decide what to procure, when to procure, how to procure, from where to procure. So coming back to what has been mentioned a couple of times, and in a very interesting part of the discussion on the previous panel, this balance between US and EU, it seems to everyone very clear that if you don't spend money on the European defense industrial base, it won't grow. And this is a member state decision. Where do you buy from? Then if you buy from Europe, do you buy alone or do you buy together with other member states? That's also a member state decision. Having said that, I think that the panel also showed that this is not one or the other. It can be done in a nice combination as well. But member states buy-in is extremely important. Is member states buy-in there? And I would say, if I want to be a little bit bold here and frank, I'd just say no. My feeling is there are too many examples of where we see that the member state buy-in simply does not exist. I'll give you one and then I'll stop because we can come back. So one good example is I've heard so many prime ministers saying that investing in defense is sustainable. It's one of the most sustainable things you can invest in today. Still, there are tons of eco-labels out there across European member states that are governmentally controlled and that puts defense in the same category as tobacco and alcohol. Meaning on the access to finance file, for example, this is for member states to clean up on the national level. And it's not being done. Nothing happens.
In fact, it's gone in the wrong direction. If you listen to Rob Bauer, remember last year at this summit, he said that he was seeing the investment funds continue to divest from defense, and it got worse after that. And I know that he personally is taking an interest in talking to them about reversing that decision, but at the moment, it doesn't look good. And you need the European Investment Bank to open up and change its regulations.
It's even, if I may just add a quick comment to that, it's even worse than it was last year, because last year when we talked about it, there was a lot about access to finance. Now this trend has gone in the wrong direction, affecting other supplies as well. So it's about skills, it's about energy, it's about insurance, it's about commercial technologies. We do have examples now that we didn't have last year, where commercial companies, big players, are refusing to sell, like machine tools, for example, to defense companies, because they don't want the defense customer. I didn't hear about these kind of examples last year, but now we hear them.
Yeah, this is true. Okay, General Graziano, I'm going to move to you. So wearing both hats, formerly an EU military chief, now with industry, what do you think? Do you think that the steps that are being taken right now on the EU side are enough to create a more sustainable defense industry? You see it, you can see it from both sides. Are contracts coming in? I mean, you got Commissioner Breton setting out a way that member states can invest, but as Jan says, they're not.
I honestly think that after being in charge of the end of users as a chairman of the military committee, and now I'm the president of one of the largest shipbuilder company in the world, that actually there are no alternative to have a stronger European industrial organization, a strong industrial base based on Europe. There is no alternative because what happened in the last years, what happened after Ukraine, that shows the world that actually we were naked because we remain without supply, without ammunition, with lack of fuel, maybe also lack of training. But on the other hand, the European Union was the only organization that was able to react and to face, because it was the only one to have the political, the military, the economic, and the informative place, and that had the possibility to apply sanctions and to deliver weapons and to decide for investing money. Not NATO, that is the most important military alliance in the world, but is defensive in role and is limited to the area of application of Article 5. Having said that, it's since the global strategy of Madame Mogherini that was said that we need to reinforce the industrial base of Europe as an element to reach the common defense, one of the most important elements, because in one side, European Union defense is going to be the European pillar of NATO, if you want, to the one that provide the supplies, the equipment, and the weapon to NATO. On the others, it has to show the ability to project forces and capabilities. What was said since the first time, that we have to solve the problem of fragmentation and duplication that is inside the Europe, inside the national will, and to have more investment. Both are true, and that is what we are looking for and what we are asking to the European institution and to our government, our country. It's true. What it was said that the industrial company did whatever they want, they do whatever they can do to go and produce, taking risk. It's also true that now we need, through this new investment, to what said President von der Leyen, Commissioner Breton, we need this investment that are moving the interest of the company, of the country. So in a way, we need to have to cooperate more, to take this opportunity to have a better cooperation within industries. But this is only possible if the decision is taken at the government level and if the amount of money is enough to stimulate the industry. EDF was an extremely good, let's say, test, but the amount of money was not enough to stimulate.
But everybody has known this for many, 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 many years. This was not only a problem that was illuminated by the problems in supplying Ukraine with weapons they could use because they weren't standardized, but everyone sat here today and said fragmentation's a problem, fragmentation's a problem. Who's doing anything about it and why not? It's in whose interest not to solve the fragmentation problem? Somebody's, otherwise it wouldn't persist.
Now, as I said, in this moment, we are a little bit forced to do it. We are a little bit forced because European Union send warship in the Red Sea to launch missiles and to be under fire. We had the problem now to supply ammunition to Ukraine, but we don't have any ammunition any longer, so we have to build the industrial capability to do it. And to do it, we have to have the material, the raw material, to work on the infrastructure. And of course, this does require a different mindset, but there are, again, no alternative because on the other side, we are going to fail. We are going to fail, and the other are going to win. And since it's running for the technological superiority, technological sovereignty, either we go together or we lose.
Okay, I'm not sure everybody feels that so urgently, but I'm going to move on now to Éric. So as someone coming from the missile industry, it would seem that now, I mean, unfortunately for Ukraine, if you're a manufacturer of missiles, you pretty much can write your own ticket, right? Everybody wants what you make. There's never been a time in my lifetime that your product has been more in demand.
We are in strong demand, yes. And for those who don't know MBDA, I'm sure you've heard recently about Storm Shadow, Scalp, which are the same missiles, about Asters, about the events in the Red Sea. This is MBDA. And building on something that you said, there's been a lot which has been known for quite some time if we are looking into the defense strategy books of the last decade. What has really changed over the very last years, in fact in 2 years, has been the acceleration, an absolute sheer acceleration. With 2020 COVID.
Of production, mean? Yep, production
no,
demand.
acceleration of the needs, acceleration of the crisis. If you look in the defense strategies, crises were expected, but not before 2030. We are in 2024, and we have seen already 2 major crises on top of of all what is developing even more today.
What do you mean? What was expected in 2030?
Crisis, more tension around the world, and there was
U.S.-China.
US-China, but not only. There was a tension which was expected, and it was expected that rearmament would become necessary. If you read the white books and the defense strategy books, this is what you see. What did we see in the very recent years? We saw COVID. COVID, the topic was resilience. The big word was resilience. As MBDA, we did support our full ecosystem in order to stay, to keep our capabilities. And on the 24th of February 2022, what has changed is the value of time. Before February, before the Russian invasion, we were still more or less in the peace dividend period, where time was a little bit a variable of adjustment. If you didn't have enough budget, you push everything to the right.
True.
Suddenly, on the 24th of February,
Uh-oh.
Am I saying something wrong? So suddenly on the 24th of February, time matters. You cannot wait anymore. And everybody in the industry, Frank is going to describe it on his bit as well, has to accelerate. And so this is what we all do. On the MBDA side, on missiles, we already see some results. For instance, the Mistrals, we are multiplying by 4 our rate of production. We are in 2024, we have already multiplied by 2, and we are on a good way to succeed, to multiply by 4. There are some other missiles which are also in sheer demand, like Aster.
Signed orders, which means you have signed orders and you've been paid for these.
We do have signed orders, but we have also a lot of demand. And here it's more difficult, but we are working on it. Working on it, what does it mean? It means immediately using the industrial capabilities as much as we can, going three shifts when it makes sense. Merci. Okay. Going 3 shifts when it makes sense. It means getting more machines, even hiring, renting some machines, making some prioritization. So working first on the missiles which are on sheer demands, working differently, not only internally but also.
Oh, come on.
I'm really not working differently, both internally and externally. But it is also in the mid-run, increasing our industrial capabilities. In most of our sites, we are expanding our capabilities, buying machines, etc. I don't want to go in all details. And not also
just keep talking.
Prepare, to keep preparing the future, because as we see in Ukraine, but not only in Ukraine, the need of our armed forces are evolving extremely quickly with totally unforeseen capabilities that they are requiring. Something very important is that none of this is possible without the full, a mic, for instance, without the full supply chain capabilities, meaning the full ecosystem. And so from this point of view, what we have heard today, all what Commissioner Breton has described, all this EDIS strategy which is now put forward, gives visibility, gives a clear vision of where Europe wants to go. And so this gives a clear message to the full ecosystem so that they focus also on defense. So I think that from this point of view, it is very important. Another message which I think is important to take is that those capabilities that are now famous on the MBDA side, Storm Shadow, Aster, these were capabilities, a new one? I hope not a third one afterwards.
This is your third.
Those capabilities, they are the result of cooperation between member states. And today, those capabilities are at the edge, are really what is made best in the world. They are top capabilities. And those capabilities, they do exist because there has been cooperation between those member states, which is, by the way, the DNA of MBDA. MBDA is, by conception, a tool for cooperation between member states. And this means that MBDA, through those capabilities, is showing that what the Commission is trying to foster, cooperation between member states, is feasible. And it can work. And not only it can work, but it can deliver the best potential capabilities in the world.
Okay, that's a great transition into Frank, because I was going to point out to you that when I looked up land systems, we find that Europeans have 14 different manufacturers in 14 different member states. So, and half of them apparently need government funding to be able to survive. So this does not exactly sound like a lean, mean fighting machine.
Yes, you're
Am I wrong, or I mean, are those figures correct?
You're totally right.
Ooh.
But my first statement is, if you count the numbers of systems delivered to Ukraine, you find my company on number one.
Okay.
And that says at least we have weapon systems which are suitable for war and which work. And this is a tremendous amount of money and a tremendous amount of quality brought to Ukraine.
But are they interoperable with other systems? I mean,
Sorry?
but the interoperability with other systems
No, it
being
started-
sent to Ukraine is a problem, right?
You know, we see, in principle, we see World War I or World War II, a mass of artillery, and this is like really 100 years back. The biggest issue we had to cross-qualify systems for different ammunitions. If you think a German system could fire a French piece of 155 ammunition, you fail.
But you still can't.
It's done now.
It's done
it's
now?
Done. It's
Oh.
done. And the Ukrainian soldiers at the front, they don't take care where the ammunition comes from. As long as it fits in their barrel, they will shoot. But shooting is one story. The other story is hitting the target. So that is a real issue.
There's a lot of training happening too.
Sorry?
There's a lot of training underway with the Ukrainians.
There is a lot of training and a lot of intelligence going on how to hit a target. And this is an amazing story as well, electronic warfare, and to see how Russians operate and how we could counter-operate in supporting the Ukrainians. The biggest issue as of today, yes, we ramped up ammunition by a factor of 2, next year a factor of 4. That all is on its way. The biggest issue I have is we have so many different systems throughout Europe, and we throw it into a battlefield of Ukraine, and it's unbelievable how much Ukrainian soldiers have to learn to operate so many different systems. It's crying after a standardization and a harmonization, and still, I'm very clear, there is so strong national egoism in Europe which protects more joint systems. It's definitely the wrong direction. We have to harmonize requirements to more or less operate all the same systems. We are always joined in theater. And if the requirements are different, you will end up with different weapon systems. And now, talk to the Ukrainians how difficult it is to use British, French, German, Italian, Polish systems.
They're not allowed to sound ungrateful, so they won't complain
You
so
see
much.
all the non-standardization, all the missed opportunities in Europe. So money is not the only thing which counts. Really more Europe, harmonized systems. And even as of today, as we sit here and talk, I was yesterday in Italy, last week, wherever I jump through Europe, every nation wants their own system.
Still.
And this is, so the only way
So
is...
they sit at NATO and say they're going to standardize.
And fast, what would help is not a new initiative with, in one consortium, 50 companies trying to develop a new fighting system. Simply tell the market what it needs and put 2 or 3 in competition, and the winner takes it all, period. This drives consolidation. This reduces the variety of different systems. The approach even the EU is taking these days is the wrong approach. Do competition and take the best.
Can someone in this room argue with that being a solution? I mean, why is this not happening? Because the people making the decisions still have an interest in protecting.
We have a
their
standard
industry.
system called Leopard in Europe. Finland, Norway, Denmark, Sweden. Spain, Portugal, Switzerland, Germany, Greece. Do you think all these Leopards could be operated by different nations? No. They all want their own. They want their own radios, they want their own navigation systems, they want their own whatever fire control or sensors in. And then it starts with logistics and spare parts, especially in Ukraine, if one is using so many different types. That doesn't make sense.
Jan-P, do you have any answers to this? Otherwise, I'm very, very close to calling Camille Grand to make him speak. Camille, why is this still happening? You know. He doesn't want to talk. He's not a panelist, but you know the answer. What can we do? Okay, Jan, you have an answer.
No, I don't have an answer. I would just want to add that this, what Frank brings up here is extremely important. However, it's also an extremely old discussion. We had this discussion
Exactly.
10 years
But
ago,
I pointed
15
this
years ago,
out.
harmonization of military requirements. And
Before Ukraine.
What I've seen during my time in this sector is that far too often there are discussions or commitments at the political level where there's a handshake between defense ministers that let's do this together.
Yep.
But when the defense ministers are then handing over the files to the civil servants that has to deal with the procurement, this is where they lose control. This is where it becomes the child of that organization itself. And this is where you start adding a number of specificities. And what was meant to be a common procurement ends up with new specificities every time. So to me, it seems like if you would ask for what is the reason, I mean, who am I to say that? But my general comment is that there's a huge gap between the political commitment and the structure down in the procuring agency.
But it's exasperating. It's exasperating. We have been talking about it for years, for decades even. And it would have stayed under the radar a bit more if it hadn't been showing up on the battlefield in Ukraine.
I think this is an excellent example when I mentioned that I think there's too little buy-in from member states. There's a lot that could be done because this is really on the member state side. Industry, we've heard that as well, that in terms of competition, industry is ready for the competition. Industry is ready for these fights, absolutely, because it's the only way to stay competitive in the long run and to have the effectiveness. But you won't see consolidation driven by industry. You will only see it when it's driven by the customer side.
Okay, Camille has been bullied into taking a mic, perhaps. Camille Grand, who used to be in charge of this at NATO, can perhaps shine a light. And Éric, you wanted to have another word as well, and then I'm already out of time for my panel, unfortunately.
Thank you, Teri. Thank you for calling me in. But
I begged you.
Having chaired the standardization committee, two things I wanted to say, and I also wanted to frame this as a question. One thing is that when it comes to standardization, the issue is testing. So how do we have our ministries of defense turning to industry and say, can you please proceed with a campaign of tests to certify that artillery shell on that gun? And if nobody is asking for that or paying for that, it won't happen. And then you have so there is a challenge. Indeed, as Frank was, you can shoot the artillery shell, it does fit in the barrel, but it won't, then you need to calibrate it, you need to do all of this, and that requires a bit of, and that's the sort of thing where we need to be really on top of our game if we want to help the Ukrainians and make a difference. My question to the panel on that would be somewhat different. It would be really about, in the moment we're in this so-called war economy mode, we hear a lot about the political decision makers that we have turned a corner, that we are there, that everything is changing, and there is some truth to that. But what are you seeing in terms of your order books when it comes to that? You know, how is the real world hitting there?
And this will unfortunately be our only question, and we'll have to wrap up after this, but it's a good final word from everyone, because I think this is the key question. This is where the rubber hits the road, as we say.
I have a simple answer. I got a frame contract for 120 Leopard 2 A8, and I'm tasked to manufacture 18 only.
Éric?
So, this is an important question, but for me, this is not the most important right now. Yes, this situation is exasperating, but I think we need also to be pragmatic. There is something which was not existing when all this way of working started and is going on now. This is this incentive to drive countries to work together. And I think this is potentially a change, because now what the Commission is putting into motion, and of course the way it is going to be put into motion is going to be super important, because it has to be well run. But there is potentially a real way to incentivize, to encourage countries to harmonize their needs and to procure together. If you procure together, it means that you need to align your doctrines, your operational doctrines, in order to use the same shells, etc., etc., etc. So they are putting this incentive together. Now it needs to be done, quote unquote, properly. This is all the definition which is going on. So there will be key questions, such as, for instance, what does it mean to buy European? This will be a key question. For me, it means design authority. There will be a question about how do you prioritize what you want to buy. The Commissioner Breton mentioned that space, cybersecurity, maritime, air defense will be priorities. This will be important question to solve. But the possibility to incentivize joint procurement, I think, is something which is new and which was not existing before.
Let's hope so. Okay, General Graciano, a last word from you, and then from Jan, and then we got to go. We're already late.
I want to say that I agree with what he said. I want to say something about the standardization, interoperability.
Just a very brief comment, sir.
Sorry?
Just a very brief comment.
Yeah,
We're
very
already,
brief,
unfortunately.
because this one is very true, but a little bit old. In the same, we were interoperable also at the time of the Cold War to exchange ammunition with American. Now, it's not true that we can exchange everything, because trying to say all the launcher torpedoes in the world have the caliber 533. Now, during the war, we were always able to launch the same torpedo. It's not true any longer in Europe, because now, in order to have and to defend their interest, the industry made something different. That cannot be acceptable. That can be forced by the nation to have real interoperability. That means also interchangeability. Because in order to force the industry to work together, it is not enough to have interoperability. Interoperability is the whole system. We have to be able to interchange on the same system, German, Italian system. In this case, we can work together because there is a main one and the other are working together, but is interchangeable. That is very important because now, different from the past, in a way or the other, we are going really in operation.
Okay, Jan, and final word. Speak for your members. Are they willing to do this?
Final word from my side is speaking for my members. I think, first of all, as said initially, industry has done a lot. Industry has done what it can do. Now we need support to take the next step. The Commission, I can only congratulate for the speed that they've had with all the different instruments. We need to hammer out how the EDIS and EDIP would work out. But it's no doubt from my perspective and from our members' perspective that we're extremely impressed by the speed of the Commission. Now let's see the deliverables of that, because it's all about the member states buy-in. On the member states buy-in, this is where I would pledge for something new, because I think there's simply a problem when you speak about the EDA steering board, you have the defense ministers. I think the defense ministers as a construction is not strong enough to take an overarching responsibility for European security. That needs to be heads of state. There are too many evident examples of processes that has not moved 1 centimeter on 10 years, and we can't continue like that. And I think as long as heads of state don't buy in with more in the security discussion, I think we're likely to be stuck on the member states' buy-in. So I'd like to see more of that.
You can tell that Commissioner Breton is headed that way because they've got the UCO's ear now in having asked for a new package. They're meeting today, but it's not on the table at this meeting. But anyway, things are moving. I'm really sorry we're out of time. I'm killing my next panel as we go. Thank you very much. It was really interesting. I cared a lot about this, and I think our audience does too. Thank you.